These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it.
I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and we've had a hell of a journey, haven't we? We've gone through 21 years of Undertaker victories here at WrestleMania, all to get here. The end of the most illustrious streak in wrestling history. One of the most legendary accomplishments in all of sports and entertainment. One of the last few things that could really shock a crowd, to surprise an audience. The end of the streak. The whole rivalry between Undertaker and Brock was simply that the Undertaker was the owner of the coveted streak, and Brock wanted to be the one to pop his cherry. Now, despite Brock Lesnar being, Brock Lesnar, no one actually believed that he'd be able to beat the streak, and even booking at the time seemed to suggest that he couldn't do it. Not because he was incapable, but because it would never actually be broken. The streak was something that was made to stand the test of time. It just couldn't be done. You also have to remember that despite him being the strongest booked guy in the company now, he wasn't so strongly booked upon his re-arrival in the company. He was beat by John Cena in his return match, and then he spent a rivalry trading wins with Triple H. So, that's not exactly the monster push you'd expect from a returning star from the UFC. Especially someone like Brock, who was as successful as he was in the UFC. But that was the case. So that was basically the entire build to this match. Oh, and at one point, Undertaker stabbed Brock Lesnar with the pen. There's your story. Now, it's said that WrestleMania goes all out with its entrances, and WrestleMania 30 was no exception. I mean, look! They let Brock Lesnar wear a hat to the ring! That's impressive. In all seriousness, Taker's entrance here, while simple, is still pretty powerful. Getting to see the caskets of all his previous fallen victims all end at Lesnar's. Sad to say that following this match, Taker might as well have just tossed himself in that last one. As soon as the bell rings, Taker goes on the offensive and begins to attack the Beast Incarnate. But Lesnar quickly counters and hits a German suplex. Lesnar clotheslines The Undertaker out of the ring, but the dead man remains very much alive. Upon attempting to get back in the ring, Lesnar begins to clobber the WrestleMania veteran, but the dead man shows that this dog still has fight in him. Or, something to that extent. Taker tosses Lesnar into a post and follows him outside the ring to continue his assault. He brings him back to the ring where he continues to target his shoulder before a failed attempt at Old School. Now, it's important to note that around this part in the match, when I was first watching it, when me and a group of friends were first watching it at a buddy's house, I decided to leave. I was so disinterested and uninvested. Is uninvested a word? And not invested in this match and the rest of WrestleMania because I already knew how everything would end. I knew what would happen. Taker was going to win. He was going to continue the streak. Daniel Bryan was going to become champion. I wasn't feeling it. I could watch it later. I already knew the outcome. So I left his house noting that I already knew how everything was going to end. And about a half hour later, I got a frantic phone call alerting me to how wrong I was. The two battle in and out of the ring, and honestly, even watching this now, it's kind of a chore. I mean, it's not like I think that Taker and Lesnar are incapable of putting on good matches together, because they have. As a matter of fact, they've even put on great matches together. But for me, this just isn't one of them. I know some people, there's a bunch of fans out there who are going to be like, well, what about all the matches they had after this? To which I say, I think all the matches they had after this also suck. It just didn't have the gravitas of their first couple encounters. And on top of that, the work itself just didn't seem to be all that great. Again, that's just one guy's opinion. But I will give the match this. It doesn't seem nearly as miserable, just miserable as it did on my first watching of this. Like, my memory had this to be much worse than it actually is. But now watching it now, I think it's just kind of mediocre.
Mediocre?
Taker hits his famous leg drop on Lesnar before returning to the ring to deliver a snake eyes followed by a chokeslam. As Paul Heyman cries out on the outside, Lesnar reverses it into an F5, which Taker dodges, tossing him into the turnbuckle and continuing his attack on Lesnar's shoulder. Taker attempts a big boot, which is dodged, leading to Lesnar working the leg both in and out of the ring. Lesnar begins to manhandle Taker in the ring, making this wrestling match look a lot more like a UFC fight, or actually upon re-reviewing this, maybe just closer to an all-out beatdown. And for a brief time, the match just stops being competitive, and it instead turns into Lesnar completely demolishing the big man from Death Valley. The dead man starts to show signs of life, but it's very quickly snuffed out, which is probably where the big rumor of this match might have come into play. I remember after this match, everybody and their father, and in some cases probably literally, began to devise this conspiracy theory that The Undertaker caught a concussion in this match early on, and it had completely handicapped his abilities. Some said that the concussion was so severe that Taker didn't even know where he was, and he was just wrestling off pure adrenaline and pure instinct. And that's why Lesnar dominated most of this match, because he had to attempt to carry it. Some even went so far as to say that The Undertaker was booked to initially carry on the streak, but he was so dazed that they couldn't get him to comply with anything they said, and Lesnar needed to pin him just to win the match and get it over. This, of course, is all bullshit. Lesnar was booked to win this from the very start, and if the booking for the build into this match, which consistently had WWE officials hammering home that the streak would never be broken, meaning that it would be because that's how wrestling works, if that knowledge wasn't enough for you and doesn't solidify that, the fact that there was already a graphic ready for when Lesnar won that match read 21-1, well, that should have given it away. Not to mention, at no point does Taker become immobile here. I mean, sure, he looks beat down, but he's just selling the brutality of the beast. And when he isn't hitting him with some of the most famous and kayfabe strongest moves in his arsenal, what he's doing is selling. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing selling. Selling from a wrestling vet and a future Hall of Famer. It's very obvious when rewatching this that Taker is still very much in control of his performance. And the people spreading these stories were obviously longtime fans that felt they needed to make up a reason as to try and justify why one of their heroes could be defeated in such a way. This was the wrestling equivalent to Superman dying. And a lot of fans, well, they just couldn't process it. Hell, the entire WrestleMania crowd couldn't process it. Not only do the cameras catch many, you knew I was going to end it on him, be honest, stunned reactions. I mean, really, just look at their faces. But also, the reaction from the audience, audibly, is incredible. An entire stadium of people are just frozen in shock. Listen to it.
The streak is over. You did it! You did it, boss! You did it!
No boos, no cheers, just a bunch of, huh? Or, what? It's like they've been traumatized. They don't even know how to react to what they just saw. Is it a great match? No, absolutely not. I don't think it's a terrible one, but it definitely misses the scale for, something of this magnitude. It's underwhelming, sure. But regardless, it's a moment that people will never forget. And even now, I have very mixed feelings on its ending. I mean, sure, we would have all liked The Undertaker to continue on and go on with the streak, but let's be honest, The Undertaker, the older he gets, the less mystique there is to his character. And he's clearly becoming more and more incapable of putting on such great performances like he had with Triple H, like he had with Shawn Michaels, like he had with Ric Flair, like he had with so many other up-and-comers or established legends. Did the streak need to end here? I don't know, maybe not, but even if it didn't, it could only last so much longer. And was Lesnar the right choice? Well, in short, from me, on my perspective, the answer is yes and no. Now, if I had to book it myself, and I'm not going to play Adam Blampier like, how I would have booked things, but I would have much preferred seeing an up-and-comer, somebody who could really take the ball and run with it, somebody who could use that rub, use that push, beat The Undertaker. So this way you can build up a reputation, you can build up a legacy through the end of another. I think that would be very poetic. So in that respect, I would think that, there was better choices to be had. Even though Lesnar was already an established star and a dominant force, he could have still used the rub because he wasn't being booked all that great to begin with. And after this, I don't think that he's actually ever legitimately lost a match except to Goldberg, which is a strange choice. Let's just leave that at that. After this defeat, Lesnar took the ball and ran with it. And even if you don't like him, and I know a lot of wrestling fans don't, you can't deny that he's been booked very powerfully since this. This definitely did add some credibility to the already credible beast. Is he really going to be the guy in the company for the next 21 years? No, definitely not. If he's there in the next 5 years, it would shock me. But at the end of the day, it did help him. It did help his career. It did help his spot in the company. He is now the guy in the company. And yeah, it was a positive for him, but maybe a negative for wrestling fans. Because I think a lot of people, if they had to see the streak end, would want to see it end to somebody who can continue to be the guy. Somebody who could essentially take The Undertaker's place in one form or another. And that clearly didn't happen. Regardless, just remember, none of our opinions matter because we're not the guy behind the desk. So, hope you enjoyed.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the Social Injustice Warrior, V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free dollar to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.